Hello, Culture and Leadership Podcast listeners. Today, I'm really excited to bring to you a special episode with Dara and Dave Feldman, a passionate wife-husband team of social entrepreneurs who seek to positively uplift as many lives as possible. They developed the Virtues Cards app, an easy-to-use tool designed to help people strengthen virtues, universal positive qualities of character, and lead lives of joy, meaning, and purpose. Dara is an author of many books, all related to education and bringing joy and meaning into education. She was honored as Disney's 2005 Outstanding Elementary Teacher of the Year and Maryland's 2015 Mother of the Year. She has many other accolades, but I'm going to go straight to Dave, who is a social entrepreneur, community builder, thought leader, and international speaker on a range of topics, including sustainable communities, entrepreneurship, and leadership development. He was the director of Green America's Center for Sustainability Solutions and is known for his groundbreaking work as co-founder of the Livability Project and founding director of Bethesda Green, a nationally recognized best practice community hub and green business incubator. Dave is currently the strategic advisor of the Virtues Project International Association, and Dara is the chief enthusiast and key animator for all of the courses and workshops that they do. So welcome, Dave and Dara.
Good afternoon. Good morning, I should say.
Yeah, such a joy to be with you and everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting to do this special episode. I really wanted to focus on your work as a couple. I have never interviewed a couple before on my podcast. I usually interview individuals. But I thought it was important to talk to the two of you at the same time because you both founded the Virtues Matter project and you also created the app Virtues Cards, which I use every day. And I found it extremely useful with my coaching clients and also with my online courses when I'm doing the live web piece. So I just wanted to do this special episode before we get going with other projects that we're going to work on together and find out more about you and what you do. So why don't we start with a virtues pick?
Absolutely. Good discernment. All right. Say when. I'm shaking my phone.
Yeah. So just for those of you who can't see on the podcast, we have a Virtues Cards app and you can actually shake the phone and it comes up with a random pick.
We got caring. Caring is giving tender attention to the people and things that matter to us. It is being a compassionate witness, listening to another wholeheartedly and without judgment. We show that we care with thoughtful acts and kind words. When we do a careful job, we give it our best effort. We are not indifferent to things that matter. We care deeply about the principles we believe in. Caring is a sign of love. When we care for others, we notice how they feel and what they need. When we care for ourselves, we have more to give to others. Caring is a gift from the heart.
And then we double tap the card and it flips onto the backside. One who cares listens. A quote by Paul Tillich. The practice of caring. I take an interest in others and listen deeply. I look for ways to be considerate and helpful. I am gentle and loving with anyone and anything placed in my care. I give excellence to whatever I do. I am passionate about my beliefs. I take good care of myself. And the affirmation, I am thankful for the gift of caring. It helps me to express my love.
So how did that resonate with you, Marie?
It actually made me think of my sister. Last weekend, my sister was here visiting because my father is ill, and we try to visit as much as with him as much as we can. I live here close to him, but she doesn't, so she has to come in. And she and her husband came together, and her husband had an incident. We had to take him to the hospital, and then it turned out to be okay in the end. But we were all very concerned about him and about his health. My sister was talking to me. We went for a walk together, and I was telling her about Virtues Matters and the Virtues Cards and talking about working together with the two of you on this. And she said, oh, that's a really good idea because only good can come out of focusing on virtues. And I'm really happy that you're doing this. And I just felt a surge of love and care for my sister that she recognized that right away.
Well, Marie, I hear your compassion for your sister and just really caring for her well-being. And it's beautiful that you both have bonded over virtues as a way to connect between two people like that. So, and the love that you care for her is beautiful. And I like this. So one of the things, one of my favorite lines is everyone has a story. And, when you talk about caring, it's to be compassionate witness, listening to others wholeheartedly and without judgment. And I think even during this crazy time that we're in, people have things that they're going through right now in their lives, and really understanding where everybody is really important. And I think people need caring. People need to feel the love of others. It just helps people work through these different challenges that they have right now. So I think that the world can always lose more caring at all levels in families and workplaces. And it's really just about listening to what people have to say and then just helping them tell their story and have a place to be able to share what's important to them.
Yeah, honey. Oh, Marie, did you want to go?
Actually, I was going to say I'd like to honor you for your humanity, Dave, and for your concern about the world.
Oh, thank you, Marie. I appreciate that.
Yeah, beautiful. And also your wisdom and discernment, honey, that it's really about listening. The best gift that we can give people to show that we care is a gift of our presence. And that's listening. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Good for me to remember. Ha, ha, ha. And so the line that jumped out at me is when we care for ourselves, we have more to give to others. We do a lot of work around the world supporting folks going through compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma and those who serve others. And there's this misunderstanding that we need to be constantly selfless and just give to our emptiness. And what the research shows is that actually self-care is service. When our cup is overflowing, not just full because, we take a couple sips and it starts to go down, but when we really take exquisite care of ourselves, then we are so much better able to serve others. And I just love that reminder here.
Yeah, and I love, honey, what words of wisdom and discernment. When you talk about caring, you often think about caring for somebody else, but, it really is, the old expression, put your own oxygen mask on first. Taking care of yourself gives you the power to actually help others even more so. So nicely said.
Thank you, baby, for your caring.
You two are very sweet together, I must say. I'm sure you're sweet all the time. You're probably sweet and feisty at the same time.
There you go. Good discernment. Speak the truth, sister. Speak the truth.
Yeah, you got to add sweetness and feist to the virtues deck. Yeah.
Feist will be in the next deck. We're looking for the next set of virtues.
We'll have your name on your face on that feisty card, Marie.
Yeah. Which makes me think about when we were first talking about doing this joint podcast, we were saying, it's not that easy to live your life focusing on the virtues and to be really honest about it, not get saccharine or not get just discouraged that you're not at that level. And really, it takes great courage to do this. And you actually, I think we said you have to be a badass to do virtues, right?
We
Absolutely.
did like that. It takes this little kumbaya feeling out of it sometimes because everyone thinks it's all nicely. But you know what? It does require work, and it requires a lot of the virtues, as you said, courage, determination, perseverance to actually really practice these skills. And it's not always for the faint of heart. It's for, people who are performers, or athletes also use the virtues in many ways to be their best.
I appreciate your thoughtfulness elevating that. I squeak. I'm 5'1.5", right? And so often when I speak the language of virtues and I'm doing the teaching, people are like, are you for real, lady? And whatever. And then I offer them the virtue of detachment. Detachment is using thinking and feeling to make smart choices. And when we can all take a breath and step back without reacting, but able to really get to our prefrontal cortex and discern and respond rather than react, like right there, that's a gift. And we need to do that in business, in our personal relationships, and it can actually be the matter of life and death.
In fact, yes, because it helps people to regulate emotionally. And I've been quite focused on emotional regulation over the past few years as I've been working on my emotional freedom coaching certification. And their virtues help not only to regulate, but they help to sustain a regulated state so you don't fall back into habits that have been destructive in the past. But I think I'm getting a little carried away because I think we should probably tell people, what did we just do? We did what's called a virtues pick. And could one of you explain what that is, a virtues pick?
Sure, absolutely. So a virtues pick, actually, we have physical cards, but as Dave said, we also have the Virtues Cards app. And a virtues pick is just reading a card front and back, and then thinking about how it connects with your heart, your head. There's so many ways to do it, but it's either an invitation to say, you might want to be a little bit more caring, or an affirmation, yeah, you really are caring, or whatever the virtue is that comes up. Sometimes it can be both. You can use the virtues pick in a variety of ways. You can do it to start a meeting as an anchor, and it could be random, or you could actually choose a virtue. So maybe it's discernment. There's so much that we need to be thinking about and focusing on as we move forward. We'll actually pull the virtue card, invite someone to read it, and then just people can popcorn out, one at a time if they want to share. Or they can talk to the person sitting next to them or in the chat box or in a Zoom room to share how it resonated with them. You can also do your own virtues pick. I'd love to do one randomly. Even if I'm in the middle of a keynote and I start to get panicked, I just shake my phone and maybe peacefulness or enthusiasm comes up. And it's just a little reminder to trust the process and the next right thing to do. You can journal about it. There's actually a journal built into the Virtues app. And when we do a virtues pick, at least on a daily basis, the virtues become not just a language, right? It helps us to break down and understand the nuances of the virtues. It actually becomes a lens and the way that we see the world.
I think you also answered the next question I was going to ask, which is what are the virtues and why should I care? But Dave, would you like to add on to what Dara just said?
Yeah, it's interesting when you do a virtues pick, so there's several different decks of cards that are actually in the Virtues Cards app. And some of them are just very short words of inspiration. So people can actually use that to start their day and ground them. And the ones that we read were from the reflection cards, which are much deeper. And the founders of the Virtues Project, which we may talk about later, did a lot of research into really delving into deep what is each virtue and creating a practice out of it. So it's a little bit more of a reflective, deeper dive into each virtue. There's also virtues for children. There's a family deck. So it's for families can come together with their kids to help the kids understand how these would apply to their lives. So a virtues pick can be used in different ways. My background tends to be more business. And, in this world of Zoom nowadays, we find ourselves able to start a Zoom meeting, for example, with a virtues pick. And you can even have people go into breakout rooms and allow people to connect before you get into the content of a meeting. So, there's a variety of different ways that people can use it, but it's a very powerful tool to bring people together, to allow you to think about what's important, and it's a connective tool. So it's, we're constantly amazed at how different people find different ways to be really creative about how to do a virtues pick.
And to answer your question about the virtues, in the Virtues Project and for Virtues Matter, virtues are universal positive qualities of character. It's in all of us. They're the positive character traits, and they're universal. What they look like in action and the way that they're practiced may be different from culture to culture, but everyone believes in and has all of the virtues in us in potential.
And people desperately need this. Society is highly critical. People are self-critical, and there's an awful lot of looking for the bad and trying to jump on people. And if we can switch that around to focusing on what the qualities are that people have and to be actively seeking out those qualities, we would have transformed workplaces, we would have better decision making, we'd have happier families. We could solve a lot of social problems just with this simple practice.
That's very well said. And just recently in my mind, my background's a little bit in the tech sector, and I keep saying it's almost like an operating system. There's so much confusion, uncertainty right now. What is it that we know that can bring us together, that can help us navigate some of the challenges that we face? And it's towards honesty and reliability, responsibility, diligence, perseverance, humanity, caring. I mean, these are kind of things that really help bring the best in ourselves out right now. And as the world is getting more complex, we need these kinds of tools to help us become our best self, to address the challenges that we all face. So I think it's really powerful. And, it gets it away from the kumbaya, because these are lofty goals. These are things that we really need to kind of reset where we are in this really fascinating and challenging time in some respects.
Absolutely. Good discernment. And I want to piggyback on that. It's also recognizing those teachable moments. And Marie, as you said, our self-talk is oftentimes negative, but then we also oftentimes will judge others. And so if we look at the uprisings right now, people can say, oh, they're just angry. right? Well, actually, there are people who are standing for justice. So if we can look underneath some of the challenging behaviors to see what virtues might be there and maybe invite some balancing virtues, then that's where these virtues absolutely are essential life skills.
That actually reminds me of 4 careers ago when I was teaching junior high. I had a student who was really out of control to the point where he would pick up his desk and hurl it across the room, which, as you can imagine, caused a lot of damage. And we had a virtue that we focused on every week. And we had been focusing on the virtue of self-control. And he was always making fun of the virtues of the week. But the self-control one day he was really angry because his pencil fell on the floor. And he just had a fit about it. He was always dysregulated. So he jumped up and grabbed his desk to throw it across the room. And then he looked at me and he slowly put the desk down. And then he said, "I showed self-control." And the whole class cheered for him. It was amazing. He chose to do something that he'd never done before, which was to aim for the principle and to adjust his behavior to the principle instead of the other way around.
Absolutely. And I honor your commitment to continue to use the language of virtues, inviting him to what self-control and self-discipline look like. And I imagine you also gave him strategies on how to call on them, right? The virtues are not just on the cards, they're not just posters on the walls, right? They're actually skills, and there are strategies that we can use to practice these. And so by being able to continue to honor him, he finally was able to call on it and recognize that he actually had self-control, self-discipline in him and apply it. And I imagine that was a life-changing moment for this young man.
I hope so.
Yeah, even other people in the classroom as well who were part of that, understanding what it looks like and what was missing and what was needed at one time too. So it had a name and it had the, like any skill, when you're practicing a new sport or a musical instrument, it's a practice. You need to understand what it looks like. What are the fundamentals of those particular things? And virtues even have those fundamentals. And if when I read the virtue of caring, on the back, there are practices. So that's kind of what does it look like in practice as if we're actually doing this on a regular basis.
And it takes time and perseverance and people to honor and see it in us, right?
Yeah, when people start to see virtues in us, then we start to see the power of it. I think that's the other piece, is mirroring these things back. So I just have to jump in and say one more little story, and then I'm going to ask you more questions. This one is the business context, which is where I was invited to come up to a site. They were having a lot of struggles in the leadership team, and they asked me to come into this site and to work with the team to try and help them improve their team communication. So we did some communication strategies. And then afterwards, I asked them each to pair up and to give a story about some obstacle that they'd overcome in their lives, and then to use the virtues list, which we can always include later with the show notes. It's a short list of virtues. Use the virtues list to honor the story that they just heard with 1 to 3 different virtues. And it was absolutely transformative. You could have heard a pin drop. They were very respectful of each other for the first time in probably several years. And they came out with this new understanding and appreciation of each other that they hadn't had before. And I said to the people that hired me in the corporate office, unless this is sustained, it's not going to last. This is a one-off thing. It's going to require some sustaining and some ongoing work. And I gave them some options for it, and they chose not to. They chose to do something else instead. And in spite of that, their HR person called me 6 months later and said, "You may be surprised to know that they still talk about that time. And when they get upset about something, they bring out the virtues list and use it." So even though it was used once and it wasn't sustained, it had a significant effect on that team.
Beautiful. Well, I hear your trust in the process, right? And also wisdom to practice, but it sounded like it was so meaningful that they practiced on their own.
Yeah, it's the power of something that really has good behind it. So energy follows intent. And when you have the intent to do something that's fundamentally good, I think it's helpful, kind of like what my sister said last weekend.
Absolutely. Dr. David Hawkins, in his book, Power versus Force, and Everything is Energy, the virtues are the high vibration. They actually give us power. I was on a call with Jack Canfield last week, and he reminded us that when we speak negatively, 10 megahertz or something, we get a decrease. And when we speak positively, it's an increase of 10 megahertz. Or I don't know if it's megahertz, but just, we feel that, right? So when we think of somebody who's really, really stubborn, okay, we're like frustrated. And when we think of that same person as really determined, then it brings that positivity, upliftment, and then we can get into openness and problem solving to move forward.
That's great. Dara, since you're speaking now, how about you tell a little bit about your virtue story and how you got started with this whole thing?
Oh, sure. All right. I'm going to balance my enthusiasm with moderation. I'm giving myself 1 minute.
Right. Sorry.
Thank you for your trust, honey. I think that was honesty. Maybe the tact card would be helpful right there. That's all good. Anyways, the really quick story is because of some trauma in my background and my mom's had alcoholism, I have been participating in 12-step programs for families of alcoholics and also for people with eating disorders for years and years and years, and 30 years. And I've always felt that everybody could benefit from 12 steps. And in 2005, I was honored as Disney's Outstanding Elementary Teacher of the Year. And I found out from the overall Disney Teacher of the Year, David Vixie, about the Virtues Project. And I saw all of these virtues on a little card, and the website took my breath away. And I knew literally that that was the reason that I received the honor, was to find out about the Virtues Project. So long story short, I reached out to some folks. I purchased the family guide, the educator's guide, the cards, and I started practicing the 5 strategies of the Virtues Project. Totally transformed my life at school, and then I would come home and yell at my 12 and 15-year-old, but we'll save the stories about the transformation in our family that happened over one dinner for another time. And I was just really hooked. And I realized that I needed to sacrifice my passion for education and leave the classroom to then volunteer my time to the founders of the Virtues Project. So I did. I left teaching. I volunteered for 7 years as director of education to the founders of the Virtues Project. They asked me to turn it into a nonprofit with 3 other women, which I did. I was the founding board chair. And I'm not a chair, I'm an educator. And so I ended up walking away and opening the chair position to somebody else, and now have the honor to do virtues work around the world. And I'm going to pass the talking piece to Dave because I'm going to tag him into the story.
My story wasn't as revolutionary, it was more evolutionary. I was, at the time, I've done a lot of work in entrepreneurialism. I actually started the first green business incubator on the East Coast in Bethesda Green. And we did a lot of community development work. We brought a lot of different folks together. And Dara always had seen how the virtues and the different strategies could be applied there. She had been doing amazing things in education and other areas. And we were bringing all different folks together. And I liked what she was doing, but I just didn't get it. It was more about, I had no idea how to integrate this work into these different groups that were doing, works around bringing on solar into the community and working on watershed issues and local food issues. And I really struggled to figure out how we could apply it. I'm one of those pragmatic in the head. And, over time, I just watched how Dara and other Virtues Project facilitators around the world were transforming people's lives. I mean, doing some really remarkable work. And as I started looking even at sustainability, it comes down to the people, how people communicate with each other, and how do we create this sustained change in people's behavior. I realized that, sustainability is a lot about the technologies and the protocols and the practices, but at the heart of it is about the people. And started working with Dara on the app, and that's really kind of where my transition started. She used to laugh. She goes, it's not only about the app, but the app was kind of my foray into, okay, if this app can change people's lives, we can get it out in front of as many people as possible, then we can start deepening people's practices. And, for me, it was just about simply doing a virtues pick and practicing this. Dara and I do a pick pretty regularly, almost daily, and I do a lot of my own. And I started just to integrate this into my own life, and it started to really change me. And I've started to watch how it's changed other people because of the work we do, and I hear back from people. So it was, she's got a big smile because I know it's taken me a little bit longer.
About your mom. I'm thinking about the workshop.
So we did a workshop, and my mom goes, since you've been doing work in the virtues, she goes, you're a lot nicer now. my mom says that. I'm like, okay, Mom, if my mom sees that as nice, then I guess something positive is happening.
But it was always kind. But the language and the strategies and listening is palpable.
I fall back on sarcasm as one of my favorite tools, and that doesn't always apply in the virtues land. So I still use sarcasm, but I'm a much nicer sarcastic person, and I use it more sparingly.
Well, I think the two of you complement each other quite nicely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
So I know that you're in the middle of a campaign right now to promote the app, and it's called Share the Love. Is that correct?
It is?
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's launching in mid-September right now. So Share the Love. Love is actually an acronym for Language of Virtues Everyone, Everywhere, Every Day. Or Dara's looking at me, it could be every day, everyone, everywhere, but it's a language of virtues every. And essentially it's about giving a virtues acknowledgement by sending a virtues card to someone by text, email, or social media, acknowledging them for the positive that you see in them. And it could be an individual, it can be a business, it can be an idea, a cause, an organization. So, as we've been practicing these virtues acknowledgements, we want to elevate positivity out there. And it's so easy that you actually just hit the button and it goes boom, share. And you can put on a personal message to say somebody about, their perseverance during this difficult time, or their kindness in taking care of a particular animal or a human being at this time. And it's really easy to do. And then there's a third card that encourages people to pay it forward and continue to share it. So the whole Share the Love campaign is really about elevating positivity with each other. And we've got a number of partners in education and parenting groups and a whole range of these groups that we're talking to that want to take it out to their communities and their constituents to help really elevate the good work that they're doing in this place and time as well.
Dave has really been awesome and really purposeful in creating this initiative. So, and also Marie, you've been really purposeful, and this is what it might look like. All right, so I have the app, I go to the purposefulness card, and I share, let's say on Facebook or Twitter or something, to you, Marie. And I say, Marie, I want to acknowledge you for your purposefulness in the way that you've been able to create these amazing trainings and podcasts and resources over the last 6 months. Marie, I encourage you to pay it forward and share the love. And then it's just hashtag share the love. There's some links to be able to download the Virtues Cards app. And they can download it at virtuesmatter.com/app or on Google, on the Play Store or on the App Store. And then people can use their creativity. You could even do a Facebook Live and verbally acknowledge somebody. And then when you type into Facebook at their name and attach the card and encourage them to pay it forward. Right now, people are hungry for the nourishment of virtues, and we trust and believe that virtues are going viral.
This is great. Thank you so much for explaining all the steps, because it makes it a lot more concrete for people to figure out how they can contribute to the campaign. And the campaign is going to keep going. Like if you're listening to this, 6 months after we've recorded it, that doesn't mean you can't continue to share the love. And I just maybe want to add a little bit of a caveat here that the app is free. Inside the app, it has in-app purchases, which amount to a grand total of maybe $6. So it's not going to break the bank to get all 6 of the decks. So it's not a big output of cash if you decide to go for that. And if you don't, and you use the free version of the app, you have access to more limited versions of each of the decks as samples. So that's what it looks like. And when I found out about it, I just found it so useful. And I use it to add on a little bit more to the concreteness of this. I use the virtues cards in the morning when I'm doing my morning practice, meditation, prayer routine. And I choose one each day. And I also choose 5 at the beginning of the week and say, what virtues do I need to practice for my business for the week? Then I put them on my calendar and I focus on them every day at the beginning of the day and the end of the day and say, how did I practice that virtue? And so for me, it's quite useful, but I also use it inside my groups when I'm working with a group of people that are supervisors, in industry, and we do a virtues pick inside the group coaching project piece and say, how does that speak to you and how you carry forward with your work? So it really elevates the process. And in coaching, the same thing at the end of a coaching session, or at the beginning of the coaching session, sometimes both. And so what does this virtue say to you after people have read it? Now, I'm really looking forward to learning more from Dara and Dave, because they're like light years and galaxies ahead of me in terms of what they're doing with using virtue strategies and in business, in education and in a whole variety of other settings. And they're going to be doing a webinar on the 23rd of September. And if you are hearing this after that webinar, you can always check out the course that they will be offering following the webinar, which will have 4 sessions in it once a week. And that course will be offered several times throughout the year. We're just launching it now. And I'm going to be an active participant in that course, learning all these strategies from Dave and Dara, because I think I need them to continue with my growth process in the whole Virtues project.
Well, bless your humility, Marie. We're doing this in unity. We're learning with one another.
Yeah, I feel still like we're still on the learning path as well. So there's so many different things. And, sometimes you do a virtues pick of a particular virtue and you pick it again a different time and you look at it a very different way. So it all depends on where you are in your journey. So I appreciate that. So I wanted to say one thing. So about this, just going back to about the sample deck. The sample deck is about 30 cards. And the goal is to see the different kinds of cards, because they do have different looks or feels. And once you kind of look at the ones, then you can actually get the full deck, which is either 99 cents or $1.99. And we priced it low because we have people all over the world using these. And the goal is really to get this out to as many hands as possible. And for those who want to deepen their practice, then that's where they can come to us. And there's all sorts of ways that we can engage them beyond that. So the app is really kind of an entryway into speaking virtues. I have one little story that I wanted to share. I had a close friend who has been a big fan of the Virtues Project, and he was dating somebody or started dating somebody through one of the mobile apps. And he had her download the app and said, pick out the top 5 virtues that you would like to have in a relationship, and I'll do the same. And they had a conversation about that. And they said it was the most fruitful conversation they've had. And after 6 or 7 months, they're still together. And he really looks at that as a critical moment for coming together. So there's really a lot of ways to embrace creativity on how you actually apply those virtues in ways.
I love that. Virtues for dating, getting off on the right foot.
So, and then the webinar is really going to start getting at to, as you've heard throughout this, we have given some virtues acknowledgments. So a virtues acknowledgement is you recognize somebody for the virtue you see in them, and then you give evidence for that virtue. And we're going to share a little bit about how a virtues acknowledgement works. And that's one of the big outcomes that will come from the webinar that you referenced, and it will be online after the 23rd as well. But looking forward to bringing in a group of folks who are really interested in applying this in their lives and sharing how this can really bring out the best in ourselves and others.
And then piggybacking, then the course, that 4 sequence, will be how to really become more fluent in virtues language. It's easy for us because we've been doing it, at least for me, for 15 years. And it does take practice and intention to basically speak a new language. And so that's what the course will be. And so if you don't want to be happier, healthier, more productive, see the world in a more uplifting place and be more uplifting, you don't want to participate.
Okay. I don't know if this is a virtue, but I'd like to honor you for delighting me constantly.
Thank you. That's really kind and creative of you. And maybe we spread a little bit of joyfulness, and it is about joy, meaning, and purpose. So if you're feeling that way and people who are listening feel that way and want to continue, we're grateful to be on this journey with you, Maria, and everybody else.
Thank you. I'd just like to give a little note to the listeners of the podcast. I'm not sure if the Culture and Leadership Connections podcast listeners know that I do webinars every month, and every second month I feature somebody. And in the past, what I've been doing for the past 14 years of my business, I have featured someone who had something important that I thought we needed to learn to be better in our careers and better business leaders. And this year I decided to move a second step forward and to choose less people, but for each person to actually learn from them and to participate in whatever it is that they offer, and then to offer that to people. So if you're interested in that, you can go to shiftworkplace.com/upcoming webinars, and you'll find we usually put a couple of months at a time up there, so it's not too overwhelming. You can find when the upcoming webinars are, and know that the ones that I put on are specifically for things that are going to make a difference in my business. So there's no hidden agenda there, but they're always value added for whoever listens to them. But the ones that are for the guests are to help promote something that I think is really necessary that we all need to learn from. And this year, my commitment is to significantly increase my own learning by participating longer term with each of those guests. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that with Virtues Matters.
Beautiful. And again, honor your purposefulness and really being able to go deep instead of broad, and your service, sharing your ongoing learning with so many others, including us, Marie.
Thank you. Do you have any closing comments before we end our podcast today?
No, I just want to thank you for hosting us, your generosity, and providing all this wisdom to all your folks. And looking forward to connecting with your community. It's exciting to be on a journey right now, and I feel like we're at this really interesting time of change worldwide. And what the world looks like, one doesn't know, but it's exciting to be in a space where we're moving towards more positivity and connecting folks together in a good way. So, thank you for everything, and look forward to connecting with some of your listeners.
Great.
Super grateful.
Yeah, I look forward to connecting with yours as well. I think it will be really interesting to bring the audiences together. So, Dara, did you have any closing comments?
No, well, yes, I guess if I'm going to say no and then I run my mouth. So obviously, yes, I do. Again, Marie, thank you for being such a woman of purpose and enthusiasm, bringing us together in unity and being able to serve and uplift humanity together. And my final thought is for everyone listening, this language of virtues, it starts with us. And going back to caring, one of the greatest gifts that you can do to care for yourselves, and I'm speaking from experience, is to do a Virtues Pick daily. So you can download the Virtues Card app and just read it for you as an invitation and an affirmation to strengthen your spirit. Thank you so much for your generosity of time, Marie, and everybody listening.
Thank you both very much. And to our podcast listeners, thank you very much for listening. Please share the love by sharing this episode and by downloading the app and sharing virtues with people in your life to help share the love in that way. And I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible on the webinar on September 23rd or checking out the course later on afterwards. So may culture and leadership connections continue to guide and inspire your day.